A lot of pro players in the competitive DbD community would say that controller is better than keyboard and mouse for playing Survivor. But is that really true? Or did they just say that because some of the best 1v1 players, like ST1v1, also known as Steve, and Ivan, are controller players? To find out, I decided to challenge myself and only play on controller for 1 week to learn about his strengths, weaknesses, and flaws, while also giving you a clear answer on which is better for you. Before I start this challenge for myself, I want to make sure I have the best controller for me, as I wouldn't want to play with a controller that isn't comfortable to use. And since I used to play on console until 2014, I have quite the collection of controllers just laying around. I ended up grabbing my trusty totally not cringe third-party Xbox One controller. I figured that this would be the best option since it's X input and Xbox is by Microsoft and so is Windows. And also people prefer using PlayStation controllers, but I've heard people have had issues with those having more input lag, or just not working correctly in general, to the point where ST1v1, also known as Steve, quit playing. Also, I wasn't gonna spend 70 bucks on a controller I don't even like for a video. Anyways, now that I have my controller of choice, it was time to start playing on controller for a full week. But before I could even play my first match, I had to make sure to rebind at least one thing to prevent dropping a pallet where you're just trying to heal someone. But with that out of the way, I can now officially start with my first day on controller. Almost immediately, I noticed one big issue that was going to prevent me from having a positive opinion from the start. My thumbs were slipping off the thumbsticks. This, of course, is easily fixed by buying some control freaks, or just any stick grips. But you know, these controllers are already expensive, and now I also gotta go out of my way to buy some rubber for my stick. To be fair though, you buy those grips like once, and unless you abuse them, they will last you longer than the controllers you actually use. But I still decided it wasn't worth it for me to get grips, as I don't really like how they feel on my fingers anyways. Because of this, I had to play by pushing the stick from the sides instead of resting my thumb directly on it. This might just be a problem with the controller I'm using. I mean, it is third party after all, but it was kind of annoying. Another thing, which I guess could have been fixed by using different binds, was that I couldn't do a gen and look around comfortably at the same time unless I used claw grip, or did this weird thing where I would use my left thumb to control the right stick. Not really a big problem to be fair, especially if you just rebind some things, but I figured I'd still mention it as this video is about my experience with a controller and not yours. Despite all of these minor complaints, I was still able to chase decently well overall, with the only problem I was having being poor camera placement for now. I was getting a little bit more comfortable on controller, getting some pretty decent chase and even being called a cheater. Unfortunately though, my camera movement still wasn't the greatest, and I still couldn't aim, causing me to miss his flashlight save. I went to a concert. Of course, the day after the concert I had to get back on the grind again. Unfortunately, I didn't really get chased much on this day except for this pinhead who really wanted his box. And of course my camera movement was still pretty bad, and you can probably tell that I'm annoyed by it from this clip. I'm just trying to look through the fucking gap and I can't. Like, it's not better, bro. Like, I don't know. On KBM I would have had that instantly, but then on controller I'm like doing this the entire time, like trying to get the right angle. Like, on day 5, I would say I was experiencing the most issues with playing on a controller. My dead hard not working because the controller has more input lag than a keyboard or mouse does. I got stuck on a wall because my thumb kept slipping, so I had to readjust. And my Y button glitching out while trying to step out of it. I don't really know if that's a controller bug or if it's just a bug specific to Doctor, but I have never had this on keyboard and mouse before. Unfortunately though, on this day I didn't really get chased. On day 6, I am once again complaining about input lag. Let's just say that a 4 millisecond difference can be huge if you're doing check spots, though that's probably not why I died here, it was just a skill issue. And we're on the final day of the challenge. I will say on this final day, I feel like I've ironed out most of the issues that I had with playing on a controller. Except for camera movement still not really feeling nice to me personally. To be honest, throughout the entire time that I was on controller, I was missing the precise camera movement that you can have with a mouse. Of course, with enough practice you could get close to having the same kind of camera movement on controller, but it will never be the same as moving your camera on a mouse. So, with that week now being over, what do I think of controller? Well, the short answer is, it's preference. The long answer is that it depends on what you value more on Survivor. Me personally, I prefer the precise camera movement you can have on keyboard and mouse. And it also feels way more comfortable for me to keep my hands on than on a controller. Some people may prefer the precise movement input that you can have on a controller, but for me personally this isn't worth the trade-off of having my hands feel comfortable, thumb slipping, buttons not working properly, bad camera movement, which could be improved on, potential issues with Windows, like your cursor moving on its own when you go to a different monitor, and additional input lag. And to be honest, I find the precise movement on controller kind of a gimmick. Like, yeah, you have full 360 control of your character with different movement speeds other than walking and running, but you honestly don't really need it. A good player on keyboard and mouse will have the same level of movement as someone on controller, the only difference being that you can't change the speed you're walking or running at, which in my opinion is a gimmick. And if your controller is maybe faulty, there's a chance you aren't even running at full speed anymore. So, should you switch to controller if you're already used to keyboard and mouse? Definitely not. You're pretty much relearning how to play Survivor. And if you're already comfortable with keyboard and mouse, why bother switching? And in my opinion, it's the same thing the other way around. If you're already used to and very comfortable with playing a controller, I would say that you probably don't want to learn to play on keyboard and mouse. Unless you're playing killer, which in my opinion should always be on keyboard and mouse. But yeah, that's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching me suffer playing with a controller. If you enjoy these kind of videos where I'm talking about things rather than just pure chasing, then make sure to leave a like, let me know in comments, stuff like that. Don't forget to subscribe if you would like to see more stuff from me. Maybe even follow me on Twitch. I do stream there pretty much every day with some form of variety. I mostly play Dead by Daylight there, but I also sometimes like to play Counter-Strike there, or maybe even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is kinda... Yeah, have a good day everyone. I'll see you next time.